Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance, and we are joined today by Eric Bauman. He is the chair of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, also the vice chair of the California Democratic Party. I want to start talking about California politics. As you know, our governor has been a very significant advocate of legislation to address climate change. He and the pro tem, Kevin DeLeon, have been pushing a bill, SB 350, which would have addressed that issue mightily. On one element, the Democratic governor, the Democratic pro tem, could not get their own party in line on the question of reducing gasoline by 50% by 2050. Were you surprised on this question?
I think for a lot of the more moderate Democrats in the Assembly, particularly those who live in the Central Valley area and around there, their view on the importance of gasoline and oil for their local economy really had an impact on them. And so getting those votes was particularly difficult. You know, there's a big argument that's made about this is an example of why we need to get, dirty money out of politics.
There were a lot of ads being run in those Democrats' districts.
Those guys were inundated. Those commercials were running, every 30 seconds or so, it seemed. And I think it makes it very tough when you're from a marginal district in a marginal place. Bottom line is, we have got to fix climate change, and despite the naysayers who say, well, if California does it, nobody else does it, it's a spit in the bucket, we are one of the largest oil-consuming economies in the world. Our carbon use is extraordinary, so every tick downward that we can make here has an impact. But also, and maybe more importantly, it sends a signal to the world and gives courage to others to go out and try to do it.
And is the governor, has he been embarrassed by this? I mean, he and the Pope, have been friends on this issue.
I would say the governor is fired up. The governor has quite a bit of time left to be governor.
He does.
And I think he's not done with this, and I think he's going to take this long and far.
What does this say, though, that this is the issue where the Democrats could not unify? I mean, I would not have predicted this. I would have thought if there was an issue the Democrats couldn't unify behind, it wouldn't be climate change. It seemed to be that climate change really kind of unified progressives and moderates.
Well, let's make a separation here. I think they all agree about climate change, and the rest of that bill is going to be California law when it goes into effect. But this particular element of it is where it got hung up, and there is a host of climate-related legislation and environmental-related legislation that becomes law January 1st because Democrats united both in the Assembly and the Senate. So let's, while people are very frustrated that the oil companies seem to score a victory through some very hard politics, particularly featuring those television ads, the reality is lots of climate change legislation gets through.
I want to shift to the federal level, talk about Democratic President Barack Obama. He fought over the summer mightily to see his Iran nuclear accord passed. What he needed to allow it to go into effect was at least a third of the Senate, a third of the House, in case he needed to override a veto, or the dream would be to get 40 votes and have the Senate filibuster, have the Democrats in the Senate filibuster. It looks like he's victorious on this. What do you think?
So,
how'd it work?
So let's explain this, because this is very confusing. What the motion, what the piece of legislation that the Republicans introduced into the Congress was a motion
of disapproval.
Right. So what he needed to do was hold together enough votes so that when he vetoed that motion of disapproval, they couldn't override the veto. And in his best case was to have 41 votes in the Senate so that it never even got a vote on the floor. And at the moment it's holding. There may be weeks of skirmishing ahead.
Right. But let's focus on the politics of it, because the politics this summer were quite fascinating. There were many folks that believed that the president would face a real struggle here, be it with Jewish Democrats who would be fearful of supporting the deal, be it with Democrats generally who were looking at polls that indicated the public was opposed to the deal. And yet, the Democrats really rallied behind him on this question?
I think for many Jewish Democrats, there is a conflict. Your natural instinct is always to want to avoid war through negotiation. And the president he created the sense that either you pass the thing or there's a war.
Right.
I frankly think that's not true.
Okay.
But that said, it is the natural place for people to be, especially progressives, to want to try to have a negotiated solution. This is a tough one because Iran is not a good player.
It is not.
This is a country that held 57 Americans hostage.
Right. For 444 days.
Correct. So there's a lot more to this. That having been said, there are legitimate concerns about the actual content of the treaty, and particularly the parts that we don't know about.
Right.
The side agreements that were not negotiated by Secretary Kerry and the 5 other countries, but were negotiated by the IAEA.
You got it right.
Because we don't know exactly what's in those. We don't know exactly what was given up.
So then why, in the end, did this president have the fortitude to gather his troops? You know, this president's had a rocky second term, especially since the last midterm election. Yet, he really gathered the forces and did what he needed to do.
Look, Barack Obama has proven that the myth of the lame duck is a myth. He has accomplished more, actually, in the last 6 months than probably in the 2 years prior.
One could
and
argue.
He's done it because the weight of election is off his shoulders. He doesn't have to ever go back to the voters again. He can summon up all the wherewithal that he has and all the skill that he has and all the capacity to go out and try to move voters. He's summoned all of that up and use it because he never has to face the voters again.
Let's talk about those that will face the voters in 2016. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton is running. Bernie Sanders is running. Bernie Sanders is gaining some traction. It's hard to deny, at least in those early states. Hillary Clinton is the presumed frontrunner, the establishment candidate. Where do you see this race going, sir?
I see an exciting race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders and the 3 other candidates that are in there, Lincoln Chafee, Jim Webb, and Governor O'Malley, Martin O'Malley from Maryland. I think it's a great time because Democrats are actually getting enthusiastic.
Are they though? Because it feels as if the enthusiasm is on the Bernie Sanders side and the Hillary Clinton supporters are supporters but not jazzed.
I think that's a media myth. I think that there is certainly enthusiasm in the Hillary camp, there's certainly enthusiasm in the Bernie camp, and I think that in the end that bodes well for Democrats because that means more people are getting involved, more people are getting registered, more people care. And as all of this is going on, the Republican clown car is driving all around the country with 16 crazy people in it. You have Donald Trump calling Carly Fiorina out for the look of her face. I mean, you have the governor of Louisiana saying, who's Indo-American, by the way, saying he's tired of hyphenated people. I mean, it is the most bizarre thing to watch.
And his name is Eric Bauman. He is the chair of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. He is the vice chair of the California Democratic Party. I am sure he'll be back as we talk about the upcoming presidential race. 2016 is just around the corner. My name is Brad Pomerance in Long Beach today. This is Charter Local Edition.